So scene number one. This to me is probably one of the most important scenes, and yet it's probably what, a minute and a half. This scene is so important because it sets the framework of the entire series. It sets the context. And that minute and a half, it covers the LA riots. And the LA riots are the response to the LAPD being acquitted for beating Rodney King. And you saw that video where they beat him senseless. They went to court, they were acquitted, and the response was LA burned. And I'm old enough to remember. I know Jody is old enough to remember, but over 60 people died, over $1 billion worth of damage. It was an international event. It was that big. But why this scene is so important, I think it establishes a premise, a mental premise that everyone in this show has. And that premise is, whether or not you accept it or whether or not they accept it, the premise is that the LAPD has a war against African Americans. You'll see in this show that a lot of white America doesn't see it. You'll see in a lot of show, you'll see in the show that a lot of black people, African Americans in the show, believe it. Whether or not it's true, that's their belief systems. And what you'll find is when we go through this show, the prosecution, the defense, they will all keep this in mind, and it will affect their decisions, how they strategize, even how they interact with one another. So to me, just in a minute and a half, that scene is critically important because it will set the tone for the entire series. Did I leave anything out of that, Jody? What do you think?
No, I think you totally covered it, Kevin. And I think there's not a lot of talking in that minute and a half, but there's a lot of visual cues, a lot of live footage from the riot to really show what was going on and people's reactions. So you can really feel the emotions that were going on in the country at that time is really the takeaway from it.
Yeah, and it just reverberates, especially throughout all the talk and the interaction between the characters. They will constantly refer to that. So keep that in mind. This is in the background. This is in their mind because this is 1994 with the murder and the trial. It's only been a couple of years behind them, so it's fresh in their minds.